Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain how to execute macro in Power Automate for desktop. In this Excel, I have updated some sample data and I have created a macro to convert this data into a table and will execute that macro using a desktop flow. This is my macro to convert that data to a table, and this is my Power Automate flow to execute the macro. First is I'm using a launch Excel action where I have updated the path of the Excel sheet. Second is a run Excel macro action. Here I am updating the Excel instance which we initialized in our previous step. And second is we have to update the macro name. To get the macro name, we can go to developer tab and then we can click on macros. And here the whatever the name is, we have to update the exact name and that desktop flow action. Here we can see that last name is sheet1.test macro. The reason is if I go to my editor, then these macros are in module 1. However, in sheet 1 also I have created this test macro. So that's why there it showed us sheet1.test macro. So just in case we have to run this macro, this test macro, then in our desktop flow activity, we have to update the name as sheet1.test macro. However, it is not recommended to update our macro in sheet. Ideally, it should be updated in module only. We should only update in sheet in case there is really a need to do so. I'll go back to my desktop flow. And after run Excel macro, we are having close Excel action. Here, we need to ensure that we have selected the save document. And now I'll run this flow. My flow is completed. And we can see my data has been converted to a table. Next, I'll show how to pass parameters while executing a macro. In my second sheet, I am having employee name, department, and designation. In my macro, I'll pass value of these and update those values in cell B1, B2, and B3. This is my desktop flow for calling that macro. And I'll show the macro also. So this is the macro sub procedure. So this accepts employee name, department, and designation, and it updates those in cells B1, B2, and B3. And this is my desktop flow. Here in run Excel macro, we have to call our macro like this. It should be macro name followed by the parameters, and it should be delimited by a semicolon. I tried using this format also where we pass the parameters inside a bracket, and this also is working, but I would lean towards the previous format where we are using semicolon as a delimiter because I believe that is more native to desktop flow. However, I can be wrong also. Now I'll run this flow. Because this is a subflow, I'll use run from here option. My flow is completed. we can see my input parameters have been updated. Next, I would like to explain about functions and macros. So till now, both of our macros have been sub procedure. So this is sub procedure for creating a table. This is the sub procedure which accepts a parameter. And this sub procedures, they don't return any value. And in macro, we have functions also. For example, this is a function which will return the number of rows which is there in this table. And this function returns the number of rows as output data. Here, this is the code for returning the output data. However, currently at the time of making this video, there is no way in Power Automate Desktop to directly get this value. Instead, we can use some workarounds. For example, we can update this value to some Excel cell and then we can read that Excel cell. But we can't get this value directly in Power Automate Desktop Flow. Now, finally, I'm going to explain something which I believe most of you will already be knowing, but just in case it helps. It is about why to use a macro when the same thing can be achieved using Power Automate desktop actions also. For example, here we updated these three parameters using macro, and we can do same thing using desktop flow Excel actions also. However, the macro makes the Excel update a lot faster. In this case, it's updating three cells only, so it won't make much of a difference. We can do this using desktop Excel activities also. However, let's say there are a lot of Excel operations to be done. For example, in this sheet, I am having order ID, quantity, and unit price. And we have to calculate total price and final price after tax. Total price will be quantity multiplied by unit price, and final price after tax, that would be the total price increased by its 18%. So I have created a macro which will perform this calculation, and also I have created a desktop flow which will also do the same calculation. We will execute both and we will see how much time both the flows are taking. This is my desktop flow which will perform those calculation using Excel activities. Here, initially I am getting the get current time, and this would be the start time. And then in the end, again I am getting the time, which would be the end date. I am subtracting both the times and I am displaying how much time it took. So I'll run this flow. So my flow is completed and it took around 224 seconds. And yeah, my flow has completed. And I had to trim the video because it took a lot of time. And now my second flow, uh, it will perform the same calculation using a macro. I have created a macro uh, to perform the same calculation. Yeah, this is my macro. And we can see it has done all this calculation. And yeah, one thing I missed mentioning, that this sheet is having 1000 rows. Before running, I'll delete this sheet and I'll replace it by a similar sheet. Here, these two columns are not updated. I'll run my desktop flow. Now, using macro, it took only 8 seconds. So it's significantly less time. So in case there are a lot of Excel operation, then it's always recommended to use macro. Apart from this execution time also, there are many other benefits of using macro also. However, this execution time is the most significant benefit of using the macro. And we'll see our output in this Excel sheet also. We can see these columns have been updated till the last row. So that's all about executing macro using Power Automate for desktop. Thank you.